respected dignitaries, esteemed guests, and fellow advocates for a sustainable future. First of all, congratulations to the GEF for organizing this summit on this very important topic of green energy. It's an honor and privilege to stand before you and talk and share my thoughts. Friends, I am from Center for High Technology, and Center for High Technology is the technical wing of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And what I want to share with you is that though we are oil and gas, today the talk which occurs amongst all the oil and gas PSUs ministry is more about clean and green energy rather than about oil and gas. The country is on track to become the third largest economy. To reach this goal of being the third largest economy, you require many things. You require manufacturing capabilities, you require skilled manpower, you require political stability, you require availability of materials. But the most important thing that is required is energy. It is estimated that energy is going to grow as a demand over 3% CAGR in order to reach our targets. Which brings us to the next important question about energy security. You see, the country in India, coal, oil and gas, and solid biomass accounts for almost 80% of the energy needs. That's what meets it. And out of that, almost 80% of the oil and gas, as you know, is imported. So what is it that we mean when we say energy security? The IEA characterized it as uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price. Whereas the Asia Pacific Energy Research Center articulates energy security through 4 essentials, which is availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. It is evident that for an evolving energy system to be successful, it must be available, accessible, affordable, and acceptable. Now, when we analyze the energy mix, when it comes to oil and gas, we find that it would be available, accessible, affordable. The question comes about acceptability, specifically in the context of the damage that it causes the environment. We know all about the 1.5 degree limit that we need and the chaos that's going to occur in the world if we don't limit ourselves. Let us look at solar. Everything is there, but the availability becomes a challenge from an intermittency point of view. Let us look at green hydrogen. Where is it that it fails? It's the affordability. The point that I'm trying to make is that there is no one single solution when it comes to meeting the requirements of energy security or energy transition. It has to be a blend. During COP26 in Glasgow, India made a significant commitment to achieving net zero emissions by the year 2070. Additionally, India aims to generate 50% of its electricity from non-fossil fuels-based sources by 2030. These ambitions, decarbonization targets, highlights the urgent need for a transition to a cleaner energy source in the future. The path to energy transition may seem challenging, but it is far from elusive. By carefully analyzing the sub-stages of this transition, we can chart a well-organized and achievable course forward. The energy transition will happen over many decades. Until then, possible all energy systems will coexist. The phase out will happen over different time frames for two reasons. First, energy systems are not only capital intensive but take time to develop and mature. Second, the phase out of old systems will take time till incremental benefits are able to justify investments in all new additional capital intensive energy systems. Taking a 360-degree viewpoint into Indian context, energy security and energy transition should be strategized on the following three pillars. First, energy transition. Now, as I mentioned, there are so many things, we heard about green hydrogen, coal gasification, solar. The basket is very big, including oil and gas. We are not going to be able to stop one or the other. Okay, it's not going to be possible that we suddenly say that, look, because oil and gas has an issue in terms of the climate effects, we need to stop investments. And there is something going to be very disruptive that is going to happen and everything is going to change. There has to be a smooth transition between the various technologies as it evolves and develops. That's the first pillar that's most important. The second is about system energy efficiencies. You see, when we transform crude to various products, we lose around 8 to 10% in terms of fuel and loss. And all the oil and gas companies are targeting to improve the efficiencies. Mr. Radhakrishnan mentioned about them, that how do you reduce it to below 5%, 6%? All the oil and gas companies have announced their net zero targets between 2035 to 2045. That's all towards how to reduce the energy intensity of the GDP. The very important factor when we look at any of these energies we talk about, it is the concept of net energy. See, today when we look at the electrolysis process, we require something like 55 kilowatt hour to produce 1 kg of hydrogen. Whereas the energy content of 1 kg of hydrogen is about 33 kilowatt hour. Okay. The point is that if the energy required to transform something which becomes useful is more than what it is going to give, there's going to be a challenge. Today when I have to transform, we have heard about 2G conversion of biomass to ethanol. The energy required for transforming the biomass to ethanol is very, very high. So the point which I am trying to make is that when we look at all these various mixes, it's going to take its time, it has to evolve, but it is inevitable if the world has to survive. One of the most, things that I like, and it's always on the back of my mind, it always plays up and I like to talk about it, is that the way I see it, as when it comes to hydrogen, I call it that it's the God's molecule. The God has been running this universe, billions and trillions of stars, on what? He runs it on hydrogen. Okay. He doesn't have any problem of availability, he doesn't have a problem of pollution. He's been doing it. It's just this, that it is the inability of humans to generate hydrogen and use it. The way I see it, at one point of time in this world, we would need to generate electricity through solar or wind, or water that's available in plenty, and then find the best way to generate hydrogen, because that's what is going to be the safest mode of how we will transform ourselves. One more aspect is about the localized energy solutions. I mean, the scheme announced by the government for solar rooftops. Okay, we talk about CBG. These are all localized solutions which need to be provided as one of the solutions for taking this energy transition forward. Coming to the oil and gas sector. Okay, the oil and gas sector is a key player in energy transition. With a large economy, growing population with low per capita energy consumption, expanding middle class, and increasing urbanization, India's energy demand, including that of petroleum products, will continue to increase for a few more decades as economic activity rise, more people have access to energy, modern appliances, and personal transport. Part of the requirement will also emanate from increased production of petrochemicals as newer refineries are built with a high degree of integration with petrochemicals to reduce the import as well as meet the ever-growing demand. The biggest growth will come from petrochemical feedstocks and jet fuel. In the country, it is estimated that oil and gas will continue to rise as a demand and will peak somewhere in 2040. When it comes to ATF, the demand is expected to rise tenfolds from what it is today. And under such circumstances, one of the most important things which is going to be required is the CORSIA needs, where it talks about certain mandates which would come in of how the ATF is going to be come in. There is this SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. There are going to be guidelines which are going to come in as to what is that will be mandated when it comes to any international flights. So there is a need for us to be setting up many of the SAF plants. When it comes to government and PNG sector, there are a lot of initiatives which the government has announced. I'll just enumerate a few of them. The National Policy on Biofuel 2018 laid down indicative targets of 20% blending of ethanol in petrol and 5% blending of biodiesel in diesel by 2030 in the country. India achieved the targeted 10% ethanol blending in May 22, much ahead of the target of November 22, and has gone to prepone the timeline by 5 years to 2025 for an ambitious blending target of 20%. There is the challenge of how do we utilize this biomass. Okay. The PM Jeevan scheme talks about 12 commercial plants and 10 demo plants of 2G bioethanol. That's one of the schemes which the government is vigorously promoting. Under the Satat scheme, it is envisaged that a production of 15 MMT of CBG and 50 MMT of manure from 5,000 CBG plants. Another scheme which the government has announced is the Site 2B scheme for green hydrogen incentivizing. So, all the oil and gas companies are being incentivized to produce at least 200 KTPA of green hydrogen. So there will be producers, and this will be transferred as an incentive, so that there is the question of, if I produce something, who's going to take it? So this is how the government is targeting as one of the requirements to promote the green hydrogen. Friends, in the corridors of people who matter, what we see is that there is a big push. The need for green energy is inevitable for all of us. And I feel very happy to always see that there is always some summit or some interaction happening all the while in this area. These are a few thoughts that were there on my mind, and I thank you for your patience listening. Thank you very much.
Please give a big round of applause.